Poor woman enters a church and meets a millionaire. What he revealed left her in tears. Welcome to the channel. Enjoy the video, give it a like, subscribe, turn on notifications, comment and share. The biting wind whipped through the streets of Chicago, carrying with it the promise of an early winter. Abigail Foster pulled her threadbare coat tighter around her slender frame, her eyes scanning the bustling sidewalk for a familiar face, one that might offer a warm smile or a helping hand. But in this sea of strangers, she found only indifference. At 32, Abigail never imagined she'd be in this position. Just months ago, she had been a respected accountant with a corner office and a view of Lake Michigan. Now, she was nothing more than another face in the crowd of the city's unfortunate, her worldly possessions reduced to what she could carry in a worn backpack. As she trudged along Michigan Avenue, the magnificent mile seemed to mock her with its glittering storefronts and well-heeled shoppers. Each step was a painful reminder of how far she had fallen. The weight of her circumstances pressed down on her, threatening to crush what little spirit she had left. Abigail's gaze drifted upward, drawn by the imposing spires of the cathedral of the Holy Name. The Gothic Revival architecture stood in stark contrast to the modern skyscrapers surrounding it, a testament to enduring faith amidst changing times. Without conscious thought, her feet carried her toward the church steps. The heavy wooden doors creaked open, enveloping Abigail in blessed warmth and the comforting scent of incense. The vast interior was mercifully empty, save for a few scattered souls seeking solace in prayer. Abigail slid into a pew near the back, her body sagging with exhaustion. For the first time in weeks, she allowed herself to truly feel the weight of her situation. Tears welled up in her eyes, spilling silently down her cheeks. How had it come to this? The memory of Ryan's betrayal still cut deep, a wound that refused to heal. Ryan Cooper had swept into her life like a whirlwind, all charm and promises. His infectious enthusiasm for his investment opportunity had blinded her to the red flags. By the time she realized the truth, it was too late. Her savings, her reputation, her very identity, all had been stripped away, leaving her adrift in a world that suddenly seemed cruel and unforgiving. Lost in her thoughts, Abigail didn't notice the man who had entered the church, and now stood, watching her with an unreadable expression. It wasn't until he cleared his throat softly that she looked up, hastily wiping away her tears. "I'm sorry to intrude," the man said, his voice deep and cultured. "But I couldn't help noticing your distress. Is there anything I can do to help?" Abigail studied him warily. He was tall and distinguished-looking, with salt-and-pepper hair and kind eyes that crinkled at the corners. His tailored suit spoke of wealth, but there was something in his demeanor that put her at ease. "That's very kind of you," Abigail replied, her voice hoarse from disuse. "But I'm afraid my problems are beyond simple solutions." The man nodded thoughtfully, then gestured to the empty space beside her. "May I sit? Sometimes, just having someone to talk to can make a world of difference." After a moment's hesitation, Abigail nodded. As the man settled beside her, she found herself opening up, the words pouring out in a torrent of pent-up emotion. She told him of her fall from grace, of Ryan's deception, and the crushing weight of betrayal. Through it all, the stranger listened, attentively, his expression one of genuine concern. When Abigail finally fell silent, emotionally spent, the man introduced himself. "My name is Nathan Blackwell," he said, extending his hand, "and I think I might be able to help you, Ms. Foster." Abigail's eyes widened in surprise. "How do you know my name?" Nathan's lips quirked in a small smile. "Chicago's financial circles aren't as large as you might think. Your situation has been discussed in certain quarters." A flash of shame and anger coursed through Abigail. "So you know about the scandal? About how I was foolish enough to be taken in by a con man?" "I know that you were the victim of a sophisticated fraud," Nathan corrected gently, "and I also know that you were an excellent accountant before this unfortunate incident. That's why I'd like to offer you a job." Abigail stared at him in disbelief. "A job? But why would you take a chance on someone like me?" Nathan's expression turned serious. "Because I believe in second chances, Ms. Foster, and because I have a feeling about you. My company, Blackwell Enterprises, is always in need of good people. It won't be the corner office you're used to. We'll start you in our janitorial department, but it's honest work and a chance to rebuild." Abigail's mind reeled. Part of her wanted to jump at the opportunity, while another part whispered caution. "This is very generous, Mr. Blackwell, but why would you do this for a stranger?" Nathan's eyes took on a faraway look. "Let's just say I understand what it's like to hit rock bottom. Many years ago, someone gave me a chance when I needed it most. I'm simply paying it forward." As Abigail considered the offer, a flicker of hope ignited in her chest. It wasn't much, but it was more than she had dared to dream of just hours ago. I don't know what to say, Mr. Blackwell. Thank you." Nathan stood, reaching into his pocket and producing a business card. "Come to this address tomorrow morning at 9 a.m. Ask for Sophia Martinez in Human Resources. She'll get you sorted out." As Abigail took the card with trembling fingers, Nathan added, "And Ms. Foster, this is just the beginning. What you do with this opportunity is entirely up to you." With a final nod, Nathan turned and strode out of the church, leaving Abigail to stare after him in wonder. As the heavy doors closed behind him, she looked down at the card in her hand, scarcely daring to believe this turn of events. For the first time in months, Abigail felt a glimmer of hope. She didn't know what tomorrow would bring, but at least now she had a tomorrow to look forward to. As she left the cathedral and stepped back onto the busy Chicago streets, the wind didn't seem quite so bitter, and the faces around her not quite so indifferent. Little did Abigail know that this chance encounter was just the beginning. The coming weeks would test her in ways she never imagined, forcing her to confront not only her own past, but the secrets lurking in the shadows of Blackwell Enterprises. As she would soon discover, Nathan Blackwell's act of kindness was merely the first move in a complex game of chess, one where the stakes were higher than she could possibly imagine. But for now, Abigail clutched the business card like a lifeline, her steps purposeful as she navigated the city streets. Tomorrow would bring new challenges, new faces, and perhaps, just perhaps, the chance to reclaim the life she had lost. As night fell over Chicago, the lights of the city twinkled like stars, each one a beacon of possibility. Somewhere in that urban tapestry, Ryan Cooper continued his machinations, unaware that his past was about to catch up with him. And in his penthouse office, Nathan Blackwell gazed out over the skyline, a small smile playing on his lips as he contemplated the wheels he had set in motion. The game was afoot, and Abigail Foster, unknowing pawn-turned-potential queen, was about to step onto a board where every move could change her destiny. The wind whispered secrets to the night, promises of redemption, revenge, and revelations yet to come. Chicago, that city of big shoulders and even bigger dreams, held its breath in anticipation of the drama about to unfold. The next morning dawned crisp and clear, a rarity for Chicago in late autumn. Abigail stood outside the imposing glass and steel structure that housed Blackwell Enterprises, her heart pounding with a mixture of anticipation and anxiety. She smoothed down her one presentable outfit, a simple black skirt and white blouse that had miraculously survived her recent tribulations, and took a deep breath before pushing through the revolving doors. The lobby was a hive of activity, men and women in sharp suits striding purposefully across the polished marble floors. Abigail approached the reception desk, clutching Nathan Blackwell's business card like a talisman. "Good morning," she said, her voice steadier than she felt. "I'm here to see Sophia Martinez in Human Resources." The receptionist, a young woman with a bright smile, nodded and made a quick call. "Ms. Martinez will be down to meet you shortly," she informed Abigail. "Please have a seat." As Abigail perched on the edge of a sleek leather chair, she couldn't help but feel out of place. The opulence of her surroundings was a stark reminder of how far she had fallen and how much she had to prove. She was so lost in thought that she almost missed the arrival of Sophia Martinez. "Ms. Foster." The voice was warm but professional. Abigail looked up to see a striking woman in her mid-30s, with dark hair pulled back in a neat bun and intelligent eyes that seemed to miss nothing. "I'm Sophia Martinez. Please follow me." As they rode the elevator to the HR department, Sophia's demeanor was friendly but reserved. Mr. Blackwell informed me of your situation, she said. I want you to know that everyone here at Blackwell Enterprises believes in second chances. We're glad to have you on board. The next few hours were a whirlwind of paperwork, orientations, and introductions. By lunchtime, Abigail found herself outfitted in a neat grey uniform, a badge clipped to her chest identifying her as part of the maintenance staff. It was a far cry from her former life, but as she gripped the handle of a mop, Abigail felt a surge of determination. This was her fresh start, and she was going to make the most of it. As the days turned into weeks, Abigail threw herself into her work with a fervor that surprised even her. She arrived early, stayed late, and took on every task with meticulous care. Her efforts didn't go unnoticed. Carlos, the head of maintenance, often praised her diligence, and even Sophia would offer an approving nod when their paths crossed. But it wasn't all smooth sailing. The physical demands of the job took their toll on Abigail's body, unused to such labor. And then there were her co-workers. While most were friendly enough, she couldn't shake the feeling that she was being watched, evaluated. Whispers would sometimes cease abruptly when she entered a room, only to resume once she left. One evening, as Abigail was finishing up her shift, she overheard a heated conversation coming from a partially open office door. Curiosity got the better of her, and she edged closer, straining to hear. "Don't care what Blackwell says, I don't trust her," a male voice hissed. "She could be a plant for all we know. The timing is too convenient." "Keep your voice down, Johnson," came Sophia's unmistakable tone. "Mr. Blackwell has his reasons. Our job is to follow orders, not question them." Abigail's heart raced. Were they talking about her? And what did Sophia mean about following orders? Before she could ponder further, footsteps approached the door. She quickly busied herself with mopping, her mind whirling with questions. As the weeks passed, Abigail couldn't shake the feeling that there was more to her employment than met the eye. Nathan Blackwell remained an elusive figure, glimpsed only occasionally as he swept through the building, always surrounded by an entourage of assistants and security. Yet she often felt his presence as if he were watching her from afar. Her suspicions were confirmed one rainy afternoon when Sophia approached her as she was cleaning the executive floor. "Mr. Blackwell would like to see you in his office," Sophia said, her expression unreadable. Abigail's stomach churned as she followed Sophia down the hallway. What if this was it? What if they had decided she wasn't worth the risk after all? But as they entered Nathan's spacious corner office, she was surprised to see him greet her with a warm smile. "Ms. Foster," he said, rising from behind his massive desk, "please have a seat. How are you finding your work here at Blackwell Enterprises?" Abigail perched on the edge of a plush leather chair, acutely aware of the disparity between her uniform and the luxurious surroundings. "It's been challenging," she admitted, "but rewarding. I'm grateful for the opportunity, Mr. Blackwell." Nathan nodded, his piercing gaze seeming to look right through her. "I've been keeping an eye on your progress, Abigail. Your work ethic is impressive. In fact, I think you're ready for a new challenge." Abigail's breath caught in her throat. "A new challenge?" "Yes," Nathan continued, a hint of a smile playing at the corners of his mouth. "How would you feel about rejoining the world of finance? We have an opening in our accounting department that I think would be perfect for someone with your unique perspective." The offer hung in the air between them, tantalizing and terrifying in equal measure. Abigail's mind raced. This was what she had been hoping for, a chance to reclaim her former life. But something in Nathan's tone, in the glint of his eye, gave her pause. "That's incredibly generous," she said carefully. "May I ask why?" Nathan leaned back in his chair, regarding her thoughtfully. "Let's just say I have a nose for talent, Ms. Foster, and I believe you have much more to offer this company than your current position allows." As Abigail left Nathan's office, her head spinning with the implications of this new development, she nearly collided with a man hurrying down the hallway. She mumbled an apology, then froze as she caught sight of his face. It was Ryan Cooper. Their eyes met for a brief electric moment. Ryan's face drained of color, his mouth opening in shock. Before either of them could speak, He turned on his heel and disappeared around a corner. Abigail stood rooted to the spot, her heart pounding. What was Ryan doing here, and why did he look so terrified to see her? As she made her way back to the maintenance closet, her mind whirled with possibilities. The chance encounter with Ryan had shaken her to her core, bringing back a flood of painful memories. But it had also ignited a spark of something else, a burning desire to uncover the truth. For the first time, Abigail began to suspect that her presence at Blackwell Enterprises was no coincidence. The whispered conversations, the watchful eyes, Nathan's sudden offer of promotion, it all pointed to something bigger, something she couldn't yet grasp. As she mechanically went through the motions of her end-of-day routine, Abigail made a decision. She would accept Nathan's offer, but not out of gratitude or ambition. She would do it to get closer to the truth, to unravel the mystery that seemed to permeate every corner of Blackwell Enterprises. Little did she know that her decision would set in motion a chain of events that would not only change her life forever, but would shake the very foundations of Chicago's financial world. As night fell over the city, Abigail Foster stood at the precipice of a journey that would test her in ways she could never have imagined, forcing her to confront not only her past, but the dark secrets lurking in the heart of Blackwell Enterprises. The game was changing, the stakes rising, and somewhere in the shadows, unseen players moved their pieces, setting the stage for a confrontation that would leave no one unscathed. The wind whispered through the canyons of steel and glass, carrying with it the promise of revelations to come, of fortunes made and lost, and of a reckoning long overdue. The following weeks were a whirlwind of change for Abigail. Her promotion to the accounting department came with a corner cubicle, a substantial pay raise, and a wardrobe upgrade that still made her do a double take when she caught her reflection in the mirror each morning. But beneath the veneer of success, a constant undercurrent of unease kept her on edge. Ryan's unexpected appearance had opened a Pandora's box of questions. Despite her best efforts, she hadn't caught another glimpse of him since that day in the hallway. It was as if he had vanished into thin air, leaving behind only the ghost of their shared past, and a gnawing suspicion that there was more to Blackwell Enterprises than met the eye. Abigail threw herself into her new role with a fervor born of both determination and distraction. She pored over financial records, cross-referencing accounts and tracking money flows with the precision of a bloodhound on a scent. Her colleagues were impressed by her dedication, but few knew of the real motivation behind her late nights and relentless focus. It was during one of these late-night sessions that Abigail stumbled upon something odd, a series of transactions, perfectly legitimate on the surface, but with a pattern that tickled at her accountant's instincts. Small discrepancies, mere pennies here and there, that over time and across multiple accounts added up to significant sums. Her discovery led her to dig deeper, and the more she looked, the more she found. A web of financial maneuvers so intricate and well hidden that she might never have noticed if she hadn't been looking for something, anything, to explain the nagging feeling that had plagued her since her first day at Blackwell Enterprises. As she sat back in her chair, rubbing her tired eyes, a soft knock at her cubicle startled her. She looked up to see Sophia Martinez standing there, a concerned expression on her face. "Burning the midnight oil again, Abigail?" Sophia asked, her tone casual but her eyes sharp and assessing. Abigail quickly minimized the spreadsheets on her screen. "Just trying to get ahead," she said with a forced smile. "You know how it is." Sophia nodded, but Abigail couldn't shake the feeling that the other woman didn't quite believe her. "Well, don't work too hard. We wouldn't want you burning out just when you're hitting your stride." As Sophia turned to leave, she paused. "Oh, by the way, Mr. Blackwell asked me to remind you about the charity gala this weekend. He's expecting all the department heads and key personnel to attend." Abigail's heart skipped a beat. She had almost forgotten about the gala, a lavish affair to raise funds for a local children's hospital. It would be her first time attending such an event as a representative of Blackwell Enterprises. "Of course," she said, "I'll be there." After Sophia left, Abigail sat in the dim light of her desk lamp, her mind racing. The gala could be an opportunity to gather more information, to perhaps even confront Nathan about her suspicions. But it was also a risk. If she wasn't careful, she could jeopardize everything she had worked so hard to rebuild. The night of A. The gala arrived, and Abigail found herself standing at the entrance of the grand ballroom at the Palmer House Hilton, feeling like an imposter in her borrowed finery. The room was a glittering spectacle of Chicago's elite, the air thick with the scent of expensive perfume and the sound of polite laughter. As she made her way through the crowd, nodding and smiling at familiar faces from Blackwell Enterprises, Abigail kept her eyes peeled for Nathan. She spotted him across the room, holding court with a group of distinguished-looking men, his charisma evident even from a distance. Just as she was about to make her way over, a hand touched her elbow. She turned, expecting to see Sophia or one of her colleagues, but instead found herself face-to-face with Ryan Cooper. "Abigail," he said, his voice low and urgent. "We need to talk." She stared at him, a maelstrom of emotions threatening to overwhelm her. Anger, hurt, confusion, and beneath it all a flicker of the attraction that had once drawn her to him. "I have nothing to say to you, Ryan," she hissed, turning to leave. His grip on her arm tightened. "Please," he said, and something in his tone made her pause. "That's not what you think. I'm not who you think I am." Before Abigail could respond, a smooth voice cut through the tension. "Is everything all right here?" Nathan Blackwell stood beside them, his expression pleasant, but his eyes hard as flint. Ryan immediately released Abigail's arm, taking a step back. "Mr. Blackwell," he said, his voice carefully neutral, "I was just catching up with an old friend." Nathan's gaze flickered between them, assessing. "I see," he said. "Well, I hope. You'll forgive me for interrupting, but I need to borrow Ms. Foster for a moment. Board business, you understand." As Nathan led her away, his hand a gentle but firm pressure on her lower back, Abigail's mind whirled. The look that had passed between Nathan and Ryan spoke volumes, but of what she couldn't be sure. They stopped at a quiet corner of the ballroom, partially hidden behind a massive floral arrangement. "Are you all right?" Nathan asked, his concern seeming genuine. "I couldn't help but notice your discomfort with Mr. Cooper." Abigail took a steadying breath. "I'm fine," she said. "Ryan and I have a history. It's complicated." Nathan nodded slowly. "I see. Well, if he's bothering you, I can have security escort him out." "No," Abigail said quickly, perhaps too quickly. "That won't be necessary. I can handle Ryan." A small smile played at the corners of Nathan's mouth. "I don't doubt it," he said. "You're a remarkably resilient woman, Abigail. It's one of the things I admire most about you." The compliment, delivered with such apparent sincerity, threw Abigail off balance. She felt a blush creeping up her cheeks and silently cursed her fair complexion. "Thank you, Mr. Blackwell," she managed. "Nathan, please," he said, his smile widening. "I think we've known each other long enough for that." As they rejoined the party, Abigail's head was spinning. The encounter with Ryan, Nathan's unexpected kindness, it all added another layer of complexity to the puzzle she was trying to solve. And yet, she couldn't shake the feeling that she was missing something crucial, some piece of the puzzle that would make everything clear. The rest of the evening passed in a blur of small talk and champagne. Abigail kept a wary eye out for Ryan, but he seemed to have disappeared as suddenly as he had appeared. As the night wore on, she found herself increasingly drawn into conversation. With Nathan, his charm and wit providing a welcome distraction from her tumultuous thoughts. It wasn't until the early hours of the morning, as she lay in bed replaying the events of the night, that a chilling realization struck her. Throughout their entire conversation, Nathan had never once asked her how she knew Ryan or expressed surprise at his presence at the gala. The implications of this oversight sent a shiver down Abigail's spine. What if Nathan already knew about her history with Ryan? What if her presence at Blackwell Enterprises wasn't a coincidence or an act of charity, but part of some larger plan? As dawn broke over the Chicago skyline, Abigail made a decision. She would continue her investigation, but with renewed caution. Someone was playing a game here, and she was determined to find out who and why. Little did she know that her decision would set in motion a chain of events that would not only unravel the mysteries surrounding Blackwell Enterprises, but would also force her to confront the darkest corners of her own past. The game was entering a new phase, and the stakes were higher than ever. In his penthouse suite across town, Nathan Blackwell stood at the window, gazing out at the city he had helped shape. A glass of scotch dangled from his fingers as he contemplated the pieces on his mental chessboard. Abigail Foster was proving to be a more intriguing player than he had anticipated. A small smile curved his lips as he raised his glass in a silent toast to the coming dawn. The stage was set, the players in position. And as Chicago stirred to life, blissfully unaware of the drama unfolding in its midst, the next move in this high-stakes game awaited. The weeks following the charity gala were a delicate balancing act for Abigail. By day, she maintained her facade of the dedicated employee, throwing herself into her work with renewed vigor. But in the quiet hours of the night, she meticulously pieced together the puzzle that Blackwell Enterprises had become. Her late-night investigations began to yield results, revealing a complex web of financial transactions that, while not explicitly illegal, skirted dangerously close to ethical boundaries. Money flowed through a labyrinth of shell companies and offshore accounts, always just opaque enough to avoid scrutiny, but raising red flags to Abigail's trained eye. One name kept recurring in her findings: Artemis Holdings. It appeared to be the linchpin in many of the more questionable transactions. But try as she might, Abigail couldn't trace its ownership or true purpose. It was like grasping at smoke, always just out of reach. As she dug deeper, Abigail couldn't shake the feeling that she was being watched. Small things, a misplaced file, a chair slightly out of position when she returned to her desk, kept her constantly on edge. The weight of her secret investigation pressed down on her, making her jumpy and paranoid. It was during one of these late nights at the office that Abigail's world tilted on its axis once again. As she was leaving, she quite literally bumped into Sophia Martinez, who was hurriedly exiting a conference room. "Abigail!" Sophia exclaimed, clearly startled. "What are you doing here so late?" Before Abigail could formulate a response, a familiar voice called out from the conference room. "Sophia, is everything all right?" Abigail's blood ran cold. It was Ryan's voice. Sophia's eyes widened in panic for a split second before her professional mask slipped back into place. "Everything's fine, Mr. Cooper. Just ran into Abigail here. She was working late." Ryan appeared in the doorway, his face a study in carefully controlled emotion when he saw Abigail. "Miss Foster," he said formally, "burning the midnight oil, I see." The tension in the air was palpable. Abigail's mind raced, trying to make sense of the scene before her. Why was Ryan in a late-night meeting with Sophia, and why did they both look so guilty? "I was just leaving," Abigail managed to say, her voice steadier than she felt. "Good night, Sophia, Mr. Cooper." As she walked to the elevator, Abigail could feel their eyes boring into her back. The doors had barely closed before she let out a shaky breath, her mind whirling with implications and possibilities. The next morning, Abigail arrived at work early, determined to get answers. But as she approached her cubicle, she noticed something was off. Her desk had been cleared, her personal items packed neatly into a box. "Ah, Ms. Foster," came Nathan Blackwell's voice from behind her. "Just the person I wanted to see. Would you join me in my office, please?" Heart pounding, Abigail followed Nathan to his spacious corner office. As she took a seat across from him, she braced herself for the worst. "Abigail," Nathan began, his tone uncharacteristically serious, "it's come to my attention that you've been conducting some extracurricular research into our company's finances." Abigail felt the blood drain from her face. "Mr. Blackwell, I can explain." He held up a hand, silencing her. "There's no need. In fact, I'm impressed. You've shown remarkable initiative and skill. That's why I'm promoting you." Of all the scenarios Abigail had imagined, this was not one of them. "Promoting me?" she echoed, disbelief evident in her voice. Nathan's smile was enigmatic. "Yes, effective immediately. You'll be working directly under me as a special financial analyst. Your first task will be to continue your investigation into Artemis Holdings. Officially, of course." Abigail's mind reeled. Was this a trap? Or was Nathan truly bringing her into his confidence? I don't understand, she admitted. No, I suppose you wouldn't, Nathan said, leaning back in his chair. It's time I laid all my cards on the table, Abigail. Blackwell Enterprises is more than just a company. We're in the business of, let's call it, financial justice. Over the next hour, Nathan wove a tale that seemed almost too fantastic to believe. Blackwell Enterprises, he explained, operated as a sort of vigilante organization, using complex financial maneuvers to redistribute wealth from corrupt individuals and companies to those they had wronged. But that's illegal, Abigail said, weakly, her worldview shifting beneath her feet. Illegal, perhaps unethical. That's a matter of perspective, Nathan countered. Think of it as a modern-day Robin Hood operation, if you will. We right wrongs that the law can't or won't touch. As Nathan continued to explain, pieces of the puzzle began to fall into place for Abigail. The secretive meetings, the complex financial trails, even Ryan's unexpected presence, it all suddenly made a twisted kind of sense. And Ryan? Abigail asked, almost afraid to hear the answer. Where does he fit into all this? Nathan's expression softened slightly. Ryan Cooper is one of our best operatives. His role was to identify potential targets, individuals or companies engaged in financial malfeasance. Your involvement with him was unexpected, but it ultimately led us to you. The revelation hit Abigail like a physical blow. Her relationship with Ryan, the heartbreak and betrayal she had suffered, had it all been part of some elaborate scheme? So everything was a lie, she asked, her voice barely above a whisper. Not everything, came a voice from the doorway. Abigail turned to see Ryan standing there, his face a mask of regret and determination. My feelings for you were real, Abigail, they still are. But this, what we do here, it's bigger than any one person. Abigail felt as if she were drowning, struggling to keep her head above the waves of revelation crashing over her. Why are you telling me all this? She managed to ask, looking back at Nathan. Because we need you, Abigail, Nathan said simply. Your skills, your integrity, your unique perspective. They make you invaluable to our operation. But more than that, you deserve to know the truth. The question is, now that you do know, what will you do with that knowledge? The weight of the decision before her pressed down on Abigail like a physical thing. On one side lay the law, the clear-cut world of right and wrong she had always known. On the other, a chance to truly make a difference, to balance the scales of justice in a way she had never imagined possible. As she looked between Nathan and Ryan, Abigail realized that her answer would not only determine her future, but potentially the futures of countless others. The line between right and wrong, once so clear, now seemed blurred beyond recognition. I need time, she said finally, her voice barely above a whisper. This is a lot to process. Nathan nodded, understanding in his eyes. Of course, take the rest of the day. But remember, Abigail, knowledge is a burden. Now that you know the truth, there's no going back. Whatever you decide, your life will never be the same. As Abigail left Nathan's office, her mind in turmoil, she felt as if she were standing on the edge of a precipice. Behind her lay the safety of ignorance, the comfortable world she had always known. Before her stretched an unknown future, fraught with danger, but also filled with the potential to effect real change. The elevator doors closed behind her, and as she descended to the lobby, Abigail Foster knew that the choice she made in the coming days would not only define her future, but potentially reshape the very fabric of Chicago's financial world. Little did she know that forces were already in motion, set to collide in a way that would test not only her newfound knowledge, but every ounce of her strength, integrity, and resilience. The game had changed, the stakes raised to dizzying heights. And as the city pulsed around her, blissfully unaware, Abigail stood at the center of a storm that was about to break. The next few days passed in a blur for Abigail as she grappled with the monumental decision before her. She wandered the streets of Chicago, the city she thought she knew so well, now seeming alien and full of hidden depths. Every passerby, every business transaction she witnessed took on new significance as she pondered the true nature of Blackwell Enterprises. On the third day, as she sat on a bench in Millennium Park, Watching families and tourists enjoy the late autumn sunshine, Abigail came to a decision. She couldn't walk away from this. The potential to make a real difference, to right wrongs on a scale she had never imagined possible, was too compelling to ignore. With a mix of trepidation and determination, Abigail returned to Blackwell Enterprises. As she rode the elevator to the executive floor, she steeled herself for what was to come. Nathan greeted her with a knowing smile, as if he had expected nothing less. "Welcome back, Abigail," he said, gesturing for her to take a seat. "I take it you've made your decision?" Abigail nodded, her voice steady as she replied, "I'm in, but I have conditions." Over the next hour, Abigail laid out her terms. She would be involved in vetting potential targets, ensuring that their actions truly warranted intervention. She insisted on transparency within the team and a clear ethical framework for their operations. Most importantly, she demanded that a portion of the recovered funds be channeled into legitimate charitable causes. To her surprise, Nathan agreed to her conditions with little resistance. "Your moral compass is precisely why we need you, Abigail," he said, a hint of pride in his voice. As Abigail immersed herself in her new role, she found herself working closely with both Nathan and Ryan. The initial awkwardness with Ryan slowly gave way to a tentative professional rapport, though the echoes of their past relationship lingered in unspoken glances and half-finished sentences. Weeks turned into months, and Abigail's skills flourished in her new environment. She uncovered financial malfeasance that had eluded even the most diligent regulators, tracing money through labyrinths of shell companies and offshore accounts. With each successful operation, she felt a growing sense of purpose, of righting the wrongs that had once left her feeling helpless and betrayed. But as Abigail delved deeper into Blackwell Enterprises' operations, she began to notice discrepancies, small inconsistencies in the financial trails, transactions that didn't quite add up. At first, she dismissed them as overlooked details in the complex web of their work. But as the anomalies accumulated, a nagging doubt began to grow in the back of her mind. It was during a late-night session, poring over the records of their latest target, that Abigail stumbled upon something that made her blood run cold. A series of transactions, cleverly hidden but unmistakable to her trained eye, that linked Blackwell Enterprises directly to Artemis Holdings, the very company she had been tasked with investigating months ago. Heart-pounding, Abigail dug deeper. What she uncovered shook her to her core. Blackwell Enterprises wasn't just redistributing wealth from the corrupt, it was skimming off the top, amassing a fortune that rivaled some of the very titans of industry they claimed to be. Policing. As the pieces fell into place, Abigail realized the true nature of the game she had been drawn into. Nathan Blackwell wasn't a modern-day Robin Hood. He was a master manipulator, using the guise of vigilante justice to build his own empire. Abigail's mind raced as she contemplated her next move. She had access to damning evidence, but exposing Blackwell Enterprises would likely implicate her as well. And then there was Ryan. Had he known all along? Was his rekindled affection just another ploy in this elaborate scheme? As dawn broke over the Chicago skyline, Abigail made her decision. She couldn't be part of this, couldn't turn a blind eye to the very corruption she had sworn to fight. With trembling hands, she began to compile the evidence, creating an ironclad case against Blackwell Enterprises. But Nathan Blackwell hadn't built his empire by being careless. As Abigail prepared to leave the office, armed with a flash drive containing her findings, she found her path blocked by security guards. Nathan stepped out from behind them, his face a mask of disappointment and cold fury. "I had such high hopes for you, Abigail," he said, his voice laced with regret. "I thought you understood the necessity of our work, the greater good we serve." "The greater good?" Abigail spat, anger overriding her fear. "You're no better than the people you claim to be fighting against. You're just another thief hiding behind a noble cause." Nathan's expression hardened. "I've given you everything, Abigail, a second chance, purpose, the opportunity to truly make a difference. And this is how you repay me?" As the security guards moved to apprehend her, Abigail's mind raced. She had one card left to play, one person who might still be on her side. "Ryan," she called out, her voice echoing through the empty office. "Ryan, if any part of what we had was real, help me." For a moment, silence reigned. Then, from behind a row of cubicles, Ryan emerged. His face was a battlefield of emotions: conflict, pain, and finally, resolve. "Enough, Nathan," he said, moving to stand between Abigail and the security guards. "This ends now." What followed was a whirlwind of action. Ryan, it turned out, had harbored his own suspicions about Nathan's true motives. He had been gathering evidence of his own, waiting for the right moment to act. Together, he and Abigail managed to escape the building, the flash drive with its damning evidence clutched tightly in Abigail's hand. The next few days were a blur of FBI interviews, legal depositions, and media frenzy. The fall of Blackwell Enterprises sent shockwaves through Chicago's financial world. Nathan Blackwell, the once revered philanthropist and business magnate, was exposed as a fraud of epic proportions. As the dust settled, Abigail found herself hailed as a whistleblower and hero, but the victory felt hollow. She had lost her job, her sense of purpose, and her faith in the possibility of true justice in the financial world. It was Ryan who eventually pulled her out of her spiral of disillusionment. "We made a difference, Abigail," he said one evening as they sat in a small cafe away from the media circus. "Maybe not in the way we thought we would, but we exposed the truth. That counts for something." Abigail looked at him, really looked at him for the first time since this whole ordeal began. She saw the regret in his eyes, the weight of his own choices heavy on his shoulders. But she also saw hope for redemption, for a fresh start. "Where do we go from here?" she asked, surprising herself with the use of "we." Ryan's hand found hers across the table, a tentative touch that held the promise of something new. "I don't know," he admitted, "but I'd like to find out, if you're willing." As they sat there, the bustling city of Chicago continuing its relentless pace around them, Abigail felt a glimmer of hope. The road ahead was uncertain, fraught with challenges and the lingering shadows of their past choices. But for the first time in months, she felt ready to face whatever came next. The story of Blackwell Enterprises and its fall from grace would be talked about for years to come. It would serve as a cautionary tale in boardrooms and business schools, a reminder that even the most seemingly noble enterprises could be corrupted by greed and ambition. But for Abigail Foster, it was more than just a cautionary tale. It was the crucible in which she had been forged anew. She had entered Blackwell Enterprises a broken woman, seeking redemption and purpose. She emerged stronger, wiser, and with a renewed commitment to fighting for true justice in the financial world. As she and Ryan left the cafe, stepping out into the crisp Chicago evening, Abigail took a deep breath. The city skyline stretched before them, a glittering testament to human ambition and the complex interplay of money and power. But now, armed with her hard-won knowledge and experiences, Abigail saw it with new eyes. She didn't know what the future held, but she was ready to face it, one balance sheet at a time. The game had changed, but Abigail Foster was just getting started.